Hello again, and welcome to the Scary Stories channel. Many more scary stories are coming soon, so be sure to hit the subscribe button below. Tonight's scary story is about a terrifying experience with a Ouija board. When I was a young boy, I watched a scary movie called Witchboard. I couldn't have been more than 10 years old at the time. This scared the life out of me, yet it fascinated me at the same time. For my birthday, I asked my parents to get me a board of my own. My birthday came, and I was really hoping that they had remembered my request. The dark mysteries that surrounded the board only enticed me more. They did grant me my wish, but later I would live to regret it. I tore the wrapping paper open to expose the board as I became filled with excitement. As the instructions say, you were never supposed to use the board by yourself. I was young, and I didn't know if there was any truth to this. I decided on the side of caution to at least start with a partner and see what happened. I was never very popular as a kid, but I had one true friend that I shared everything with. I talked to him at school the next day. I told him what I got for my birthday and asked if he wanted to try it out tonight. He was spending the night at my house anyways. He was very skeptical, but after the day went on, he agreed. The night came, and we watched the movie first, as to sort of prime the suspense. Then it came time to light the candles, turn the lights off, and bite the bullet. The board laid there on the floor between us. The candlelight's reflection danced off the glossy letters of the board. We both looked at each other and swallowed hard. I said, "Well, let's get started." We put our hands on opposite sides of the planchette. Nothing happened. I instructed him to ask the first question. He reluctantly asked if there was anyone present. Nothing happened. I asked, "Does anyone want to speak with us?" Still, nothing happened. I asked, "How old are you?" Again, nothing happened. After a while, we started being stupid and asking ridiculous questions, and yet still, nothing happened. We soon became bored and decided to play a midnight game of basketball at the park. We left the board out on the floor, but we put the planchette on the coffee table. We proceeded to play for over an hour before we returned to my house. When we got back, we got the surprise of our lives. The planchette was back on the board with the window covering the word yes. I thought it was a scary prank my parents was trying to pull on us, so I ran to them and asked. They were outside on the deck, enjoying the nice weather of late spring. They swore they hadn't even been inside since we started watching the movie a few hours before. I had my serious doubts, but you could tell this scared my friend. Nevertheless, I took the board and put it under my bed and went back to the living room to continue the sleepover. That night, we both kept having nightmares and kept waking each other up. I never have nightmares, but this night was different. The house felt cold and uncomfortable when it was usually on the warm side this time of year. We finally got back to sleep and slept through the morning. The next morning, I was the first to wake. I had left my bag with my video games on the floor in my room, so I went in to get it. To my horrifying surprise, the board was back on top of my bed with the planchette over the number 6. I knew this couldn't have been my parents pulling a prank. My room was just the way I had left it. My heart was in my throat. I never spoke of this to anyone. I decided to put the board back in its case and put it up in the cabinets over the garage workbench. Nobody ever got into those. About a week went by, and now it was summer break. School was out for the season, and I couldn't wait to be having fun in the sun. We were in a heat wave, and it was in the upper 90s all month long. Every night when I would go to bed, though, I felt like I was freezing. This wasn't at all normal for my room. I couldn't find enough spare blankets to keep myself warm at night. At the beginning of June, my mother always did her seasonal cleaning. This meant that everything had to be taken out and either marked for the summer's garage sale or find a permanent place. She was helping me with my closet since I was a hoarder and never let go of anything. She opened the closet door, and under a shoebox was the Ouija case, flat on the floor. I couldn't believe it. She hadn't went through the garage yet, so I know nobody had moved it. Again, my heart was in my throat. How did it get there? I grabbed it and flew out the door. She was yelling to get back there and help, but at that point, I was on a mission. There was a place just outside the city limits about 2 blocks from my house that I would go to think. It was on the riverbanks in the woods, and only myself and a couple of other people knew about it. I found an old rake to dig with, as this used to be the city dump years ago. I dug at least a 2-foot deep hole and buried the board, case and all. I didn't want anything to do with it again. That night, my room was hot, as it used to be before I used the board. I thought it was all over with, but I was wrong. I went with my friend the next day to go swimming and fishing. We had a great time, but when I got back home, my mother had a garage sale box to sort through on the kitchen table. I could already see it. Lying there on top of the box was the case. She asked me if there was anything there that I used anymore. I couldn't even speak. I opened the lid in the case, and there it was, the board. It looked as if it hadn't even left the house. I did the only thing I could think of. I kept it to myself and told her I wanted to keep the board, but she could sell everything else in the sale the next week. That night I decided to use the board by myself to figure out how to get it out of my life once and for all. I was going all out. I stayed up until 3 a.m., lit the candles, took a deep breath as the board and planchette stared back at me. I placed my hands on the opposite sides and closed my eyes until it started to move. I asked, "Will you leave me alone?" It said, "No." "Why?" It spelled out H-E-L-P-M-E. "What do you want me to do?" It spelled R-I-V-E-R-C-A-V. At that moment, it clicked with me. There was an old 1960s truck cab sitting in the rubble at the old dump. I asked, "Do you want me to go to the old truck cab?" "Yes." I left the board, grabbed my flashlight, and snuck my bike out of the garage. I pedaled as fast as I could down to the old dump. I saw the cab in the distance out in the woods, and my pulse raced faster and faster. I thought my heart was going to explode. I looked in the cab and all around. Nothing. I looked under the old, smelly, torn-up seat. Nothing. Then, I was getting back out, and I noticed a paper wedged behind the gas tank that was right behind the backrest of the seat. I pulled it out, and there was a note written decades ago. It was a confession note. A man wrote that he couldn't take care of his only son, so he decided to end it all. It read that he took his only son Richard in his sleep down to the river when it was flooding. He is going to tie a boulder to both of them and jump in the water. It is what is best for everyone. I realized this was a murder-suicide confession. I went back home as fast as I could and woke my parents. I showed them the letter and told them what had happened. They called the county sheriff. Come to find out, there was 2 missing persons report filled out over 30 years ago in a town in the next county that was never solved. Of course, I was in big trouble for leaving the house in the middle of the night, but things immediately went back to normal. I burnt the board in a campfire and have never touched one since. I started this with a fascination, but now I know there are so many things in this world that I never care to understand. This spirit was harmless, but if good spirits exist, is there other entities out there as well? This is a good thought to ponder tonight as you go to sleep. As always, good night, sleep tight, from the Scary Stories channel.